Sitting by the corner table of the small cafe, she felt her hands trembling slightly as she wrapped them around the warm coffee cup. The sound of chatter and clinking cups filled the air, but all she could hear was the quick rhythm of her own heartbeat. She glanced at her reflection in the glass window beside her, trying to smooth her hair and calm her nerves, but her tired eyes told the story of long nights and endless responsibilities. Her little boy sat beside her, swinging his legs impatiently, clutching a small toy car that he wouldn't leave home without. She had promised herself she wouldn't let him see her anxiety, but the truth was, she had almost cancelled this date a dozen times. A blind date was already nerve-wracking, but bringing her son along felt like a terrible mistake. She kept whispering to him, "Please behave, sweetheart. Just sit quietly for a little while," even though she knew children didn't always follow such requests. When the cafe door opened, a tall man in a sharp suit walked in, his presence commanding immediate attention. She recognized him from the photo her friend had shown her. He looked even more put together in person, like someone who belonged in a different world entirely. Her throat went dry, and panic rushed over her. Quickly, she rose from her chair, almost knocking into the table in her haste. Words tumbled out before she could stop them. "I'm so sorry, I had no choice but to bring my son. I couldn't find a babysitter." She felt her face flush red, every insecurity rising at once. What if he thought she was irresponsible? What if he turned around and left right there? For a moment, the whole cafe seemed to hold its breath as she waited for his reaction. The man paused for a second, his sharp gaze shifting from the mother's anxious eyes down to the small boy gripping his toy car. Instead of the annoyance or disappointment she feared, his expression softened almost instantly. A slow, genuine smile spread across his face as he crouched down so he was eye level with the child. "Hey there, buddy," he said warmly, extending his hand as though meeting an equal. The boy blinked, surprised at the gesture, then shyly placed his tiny hand in the man's larger one. "Nice to meet you, I'm Daniel," he added, his tone playful yet respectful, as if the boy's presence was not an inconvenience but a privilege. The mother stood frozen, watching the scene unfold with disbelief. She had expected sighs, excuses, or a polite dismissal, but instead she was watching this polished CEO kneeling on the cafe floor, speaking gently to her son. Her chest tightened, and the words she'd prepared as an apology suddenly felt unnecessary. "Don't apologize," Daniel said, rising to his feet and turning back to her, his smile never fading. "He's part of your life, right? So I'm glad I get to meet him too." His voice carried a calm sincerity, one that instantly cut through her nervous defenses. The little boy grinned, suddenly comfortable, and tugged at his mother's sleeve as if silently saying, "See? He's nice." She sat back down slowly, still processing, her hands folding nervously on the table. Daniel took the seat opposite them, his presence no longer intimidating but strangely reassuring. Instead of glancing at his watch or scanning the room for an escape, he leaned forward, giving them his full attention. "So," he said lightly, glancing at the boy, "what kind of superheroes do you like?" The child's face lit up instantly as he began to chatter about his favorites, and for the first time that evening, the single mom allowed herself to breathe easier. Something about this man's smile told her she wasn't being judged, she was being seen. The minutes slipped by faster than she expected. What she thought would be an awkward, strained evening somehow turned into one of the most comfortable conversations she'd had in years. While her son scribbled furiously on napkins with the crayons the cafe kept for kids, Daniel leaned forward, genuinely listening to her stories. He asked about her job, her dreams, and even about the challenges of motherhood without a hint of pity, only interest. Every time her son interrupted to proudly show his napkin masterpiece, Daniel didn't wave him off or pretend to care. He gave the boy his full attention, admiring the crooked superheroes and even asking, "So, who's this one supposed to defeat?" Before long, Daniel was holding up one of the napkins like a shield, pretending to be the villain while her son launched dramatic attacks with his toy car. The sound of the boy's laughter echoed through the cafe, so pure and unrestrained that it drew smiles from the nearby tables. She watched in amazement as the powerful man she had pictured as serious and untouchable now leaned sideways in his chair, groaning dramatically as he let the toy car defeat him. "You got me," he cried, clutching his chest. The boy squealed with delight, his laughter contagious. She couldn't stop herself from smiling, her earlier embarrassment melting into warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't just that Daniel was kind, it was the way he didn't make her son feel like a burden, but rather the center of the evening. She noticed how natural he seemed, as if this wasn't the first time he had sat with a child, as if he belonged right there at their table. Her son leaned against her arm, whispering in excitement, "Mom, he's fun." And her heart swelled at the innocent approval. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine what it would feel like if this wasn't just a blind date, but the beginning of something real. The thought scared her, but the way Daniel looked at them, with no judgment, only warmth, made it feel possible. When the evening finally wound down, she realized with a start how much time had passed. What was supposed to be a quick coffee to test the waters of a blind date had stretched into hours filled with laughter, stories, and an unexpected sense of ease. The cafe staff began clearing tables around them, and her son, now tired from his adventures, leaned sleepily against her shoulder, clutching his toy car as though it were a pillow. She reached for her bag, suddenly nervous again, the reality of the situation returning. This was just a date, and surely he had more important things to do than spend his evening with a single mom and her child. As she adjusted her son's jacket, she started to apologize again, the words forming in her throat. But before she could speak, Daniel gently placed his hand on the table, stopping her with a quiet firmness. His eyes met hers, steady and reassuring. "Don't," he said softly, his voice carrying a warmth that silenced her worries. "I didn't come here just to meet a woman. I came here hoping to find something real. And you and your son," he glanced at the boy resting peacefully, a faint smile touching his lips, "you two feel real." Her throat tightened, emotions threatening to spill over. For so long she had carried the weight of doing everything alone, believing that her world was too complicated, too heavy for someone else to want to share. Yet here was this man, this successful CEO, saying exactly the words she had secretly wished someone would say. The kindness in his eyes didn't feel like sympathy, it felt like recognition, as though he truly saw her strength, her struggles, and her worth. Tears blurred her vision as she nodded, unable to find the right words. She whispered a quiet, "Thank you," though it felt far too small compared to the moment. Daniel stood, offering his hand to help her up, and when she took it, she felt an unexpected steadiness flow through her. Together, they walked out into the night, her son's small hand tucked safely between them. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was carrying her world alone. She felt like she might finally have someone willing to carry it with her.